the culture at Shy at New York is disruption, do something that's never been done before. Our goal was to keep people engaged through to the very end so that they are compelled to watch a 10-minute piece of content.
Welcome to Made for TikTok Talking Creative, a show featuring inspirational conversations with creative leaders who have mastered the art of producing TikTok content and continue to raise the bar for the advertising industry. I'm Jordan, Creative Agency Partnerships Lead at TikTok, and today is all about long-form storytelling. Hilton Hotels and Resorts left an unforgettable mark on the industry when they launched a 10-minute campaign on TikTok. Behind this critically acclaimed campaign is TBWA Shy It Day. We're here today with TBWA's Executive Strategy Director of Social and Content, Lesley Parks, to learn how this campaign came to life. Lesley, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
It's great to finally get to meet you in person and we can talk about this campaign that we love so much internally. But before I get into that, I want to talk to you a little bit about your background because I love talking to people who study psychology. Tell me about the reason why you decided to take your psychology education and apply it to the advertising industry.
Yeah, so I will say I didn't really know much about the advertising industry when I was studying psychology. I fell into it through PR.
Okay.
So I started my career in PR and, sort of just by nature of being a young person in the industry at that time, carved out a specialty in social and got hired in an advertising agency eventually. But I think it's not surprising that I ended up in advertising because understanding human behavior and how people make decisions and how people are influenced and how people connect with each other is really what advertising is all about. I fell into something that makes a whole lot of sense to me and is really built off of my sort of core interest in people. But I was kind of an idiot in college and didn't know that there was a sort of a business career available to me via the psychology route.
I was late to the advertising game too.
It's great.
When I got to school, I didn't know about the industry either. And it was something that I fell into as well. But I love that you took your psychology degree and you applied it to advertising. I think especially today, the way the consumers receive information, respond to information, share information is so different. How do you stay current on, how consumers are changing?
Yeah, I think there are so many ways to do that. And I think it's kind of a challenge for anyone in the industry to not be biased by their own behaviors. But I think the first thing I do as somebody who specializes in social and digital connection, which to me is everything, always has been, and is sort of like built from a personal interest, is to spend time online, but with a like really clear sort of curious focus instead of just consuming content. I think I'm always considering like, who is the community that's putting this out? Who is it resonating with? So first and foremost, just spending time in digital places, especially new and emerging ones, with that lens is how I personally do it. I spend a lot of time on TikTok. I would say my FYP is probably not fully representative of my personal interests because I like to get into a lot of different weird communities. But I think Substack is an amazing resource these days too. One of my favorite Substacks is the After School Substack by Casey Lewis. She's focused totally on Gen Z culture. As somebody who's like fully out of that generation, not even close to it, that's like a really important sort of part of my media diet. I, of course, am a strategist, so I pay attention to, any new Simmons report, any sort of study or information that comes out about like what's happening in the world, in the US, globally. But I would say like Substack and just spending time online are the places that I really rely on to understand what's going on with people.
Yeah. What do you mean by Substack?
So Substack, like the newsletter, the newsletter platform. And I think this is like, it's interesting to watch how the internet has shifted over the years. Like newsletters used to be an amazing way to connect with different communities. Then social came in and it was like full broadcasts and we've kind of seen the sort of community building happening in a more niche way. I think TikTok is a big part of that. So I follow, different marketers and, cultural writers and, sort of general writers on Substack and get these amazing newsletters that I really get into.
When you're perusing on TikTok and you're just swiping through and looking at content and everything like that, are you just looking at the content, or what other things are you considering within that experience to get a better understanding of consumer behavior?
I'm looking at the content, but I'm also looking at the comments, often going down different rabbit holes of, especially if it's a comment reply, understanding where it started. I'm really interested in like the origins of what takes off on the internet. And so obviously content first, but I spend a ton of time, I may be an anomaly here. I'm on the FYP. I'm not going to the feed of the people I follow usually, because I think I'm really curious about, what the algo is going to feed me.
Yeah, I think when I see a piece of content that sparks my interest, I run to the comments, and it's always so refreshing when the comments are not what I initially had in mind. I'm like, wow, everybody thinks the opposite of me about this. I need to really understand this a bit more. So the comments are so enlightening.
Totally.
What communities are popping up on your For You page?
Yeah, so I get, mom talk. I am a mom, so I've found a lot of humor and kind of community and mom talk stuff. I do get the funny stuff. I don't get the mom hack stuff, because that's more fun to me.
Yeah.
I'm on ballroom talk. So voguing, ballroom,
oh yes, me too.
Yeah, it's so fun. I've been on it. I feel like have gotten served that stuff essentially since Renaissance came out, and I just can't get enough. It's so joyful. I feel like I just get amazing videos of women having fun with their friends and doing weird stuff together. I don't know what that genre would be, but I think that's sort of a genre of content that I get a lot of.
Okay, we have some similarities there. I see some overlap. All right, so let's start with the question that's on everyone's mind. Tell me about the process of pitching the idea to Hilton. Was this something that they were open to, there was resistance to? What was the insight?
Yeah, so it was a journey, I'm sure, as you might imagine. And I do want to acknowledge that the idea, in its first inception, was kind of like a back of the deck idea, just a high level concept. What if we made a long ad that people wanted to stay in, essentially? And that is, built off of Hilton's brand platform, that they're for the stay. When we looked at, sort of the market and the industry, we saw that all of our hotel competitors and travel competitors were solely focused on the destination, but the stay itself is really what makes or breaks a trip. I think so many of us have experienced that firsthand. We've experienced it when we've, perhaps had a terrible Airbnb experience. And so Hilton went all in on the stay. So we had this really powerful brand platform available to us.
Yeah.
And when we were starting to think about how to bring that to life on social, we had a pretty open brief, how do we bring the stay to social? And one of the ideas that came through was, let's make a really long ad that people want to stay in. So we started pursuing it as a nebulous idea. It wasn't a 10-minute TikTok. It wasn't even on TikTok. It was just something that was going to be super engaging. And that's honestly where you guys came in, our other platform partners came in, and our clients really partnered with us to think through, okay, we have this nebulous idea. How might we mold it and bring it to life? So it's a long story, but I think there was, an aha moment for me and us at the agency when we talked to TikTok, because the insight is TikTok is the fastest moving place on the internet. It was built off of short form content. And the challenge of inspiring people to stay in one place on TikTok was just too good. I got really excited about making this a TikTok idea. We were still considering bringing it to life in a couple of different places as we started to really map it out and shape it. I think the breakthrough, there are many breakthroughs, but that opportunity to do something that had never really been done before in a place where inarguably moving culture forward, where people are spending a lot of time, where a diversity of people are spending a lot of time. And, just the opportunity to do something that is so anti to the sort of normal way that people consume content on TikTok. As marketers, and especially the culture at Shy at New York is disruption, do something that's never been done before, do something that's unexpected so that we capture people's attention.
Yeah.
And so there was an unlock when we said, okay, let's do this on TikTok. Additionally, the 10-minute thing didn't really come to life until, halfway through the process. But TikTok had recently opened the ability to create these long form videos to brands. And we hadn't seen anyone do anything like this. So we were excited to, put 10 minutes on the wall and say, we're going to do something absolutely crazy that's going to get people's attention and use that full creative canvas to us.
I love that. So you were attracted to the challenge.
For sure. Yeah.
So it's interesting because you could have just made a 10-minute ad that was platform agnostic, right? And shared it around to other platforms. But what I loved about this campaign is that it was so TikTok first. I think there was even a moment in the script where an actor who was an advertising executive was like, 10 minutes on TikTok is like 3
years in the real world.
What was the decision to forego what could be perceived as more scale and just focus on TikTok?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And it's like one that's at the center of like everything that I do in social, because our clients so often want to find efficiencies and we want to find efficiencies for them, right? But I think this idea, it wouldn't have hit if it wasn't just for TikTok. And so that was the sort of risk that we were weighing. Like if we didn't have that singular focus and that singular idea sort of anchoring this whole thing, we would have lost the thread and the story wouldn't have been there anymore. And I just kudos to our clients for saying yes to something that was so, could have been very siloed, could have been very limited in its reach. But they, responded to the data. People are spending their time there. It's kind of what people are talking about. A lot of that originates on TikTok. And yeah, we were very adamant that we only make it for one place. And I'm so grateful that they trusted us to do that.
It really resonated. There were a lot of components in that 10-minute time span where it felt like I was like, this is for TikTok. I want to talk a little bit about your collaboration with TikTok leading up to this. What was that process like? Because I know that you had a very close relationship with the TikTok team to bring this to life.
Yeah. So, I credit our partnership with TikTok, shout out to Matt, for making this happen, and our collaboration with the media agency Dentsu. This was a really unique experience for me in my career because I think we are always trying to collaborate with platforms, but this was the longest process ever. I think we looped TikTok in to this idea in July or August of 2022, and then we launched in February of 2023. And TikTok was truly a creative and media partner to us throughout that process. I think the purity of the idea, we're making the longest TikTok ever that a brand has put out into the world, was really central to all of it. And our partners at TikTok made it happen. I think there were so many different versions of this idea. Initially, we were going to try to make it a lead generation ad, and it wouldn't have been on the feed so that we could capture people's data that way and make it a really pure experience so that, we wanted people to get to the end of the video to see, potentially an Easter egg or something that would give it away. And so we could capture their attention this whole time. That ended up being really difficult. So we stripped it back and simplified it. And TikTok were amazing partners in essentially pursuing all of these different routes for us so that we could come up with, I think, the most compelling creative idea. And yeah, I could go on and on about what amazing partners you guys were, just from ideation into deployment. Deploying something like that is really difficult, right? And it went remarkably smoothly, considering that something of that length, and something with so many different influencers collaborating with it. It's a big piece of content to put out into the world.
It's a lot of opportunity for challenges to come up, for things to go off path. Talk to me about any of the challenges that you experienced, whether that be in the ideation process or in the production process, and how your team was able to navigate that?
All right. So challenges. There were so many challenges, as is often the case when you're building an idea or a campaign, especially one that comes to life over several months. There were many different concepts on the table. At one point, we considered doing it just with Paris. At one point, we went all in on doing it with many influencers, which we can get into in a second. So concept changed. The production process, how are we going to bring it to life, was challenging. Product questions. Is this format even going to be available to us by the time we launch? Is another brand going to have done it? So it's not, as juicy and interesting. Yeah. But we overcame all of them. I think a big key here was that collaboration across client, creative agency, media agency, and platform. Yeah. It's truly, I think, just a shining example of constant communication and having a core team that's really dedicated to bringing the idea to life.
Yeah, you all had a good head start, which is always helpful, right, to mitigate those challenges.
Totally, yeah.
All right, well, we're going to pause for a brief moment to hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Are you marketing to an unengaged audience? Tired of your view-through rates not doing the numbers? Is your creative hard work getting the swipe? Then try Focused View. TikTok's For You page is an immersive, full-screen, sound-on utopia where your audience is dialed in, choosing to give their full attention. And Focused View takes full advantage of every second of watch time. How? Easy. TikTok delivers your ads to your users who are most likely to engage. And Focus View guarantees either a 6-second view or a user's interaction with your TikTok. Whichever comes first. Check out this happy customer's face before and after Focus View. That's the face of an advertiser who drove massive brand impact and got 10 hours of uninterrupted sleep, knowing that their ads were being seen by people who were truly paying attention. It's a game changer. If you want full funnel goodness and peace of mind, then you want Focused View. Ready to get focused? We're ready to talk. Contact your TikTok representative to get started today.
So for this 10-minute campaign, I couldn't help but notice that you brought in a lot of heavy hitter creators. Bo Manzer, Chris Olsen, Shmo Yoho, just to name a few. And there were also actors there. And I don't always see that on TikTok. Usually I see just creator-led or talent-specific. What was the thought behind blending the two for this one piece of content?
Yeah, so I have to give credit to our amazing directors, David Ebert and Daniel Cadavan here, because I think we had this nugget of an idea and a concept of how we wanted it to go, but Dave in particular, who is a TikTok creator, a TikTok native director, helped us build out the casting list and sort of the story based on who those people are. So from my perspective, having a diversity of creators within this video and a diversity of creators creating content about this video within their own feeds was a non-negotiable on TikTok, particularly with this brief, which was breakthrough culture, get people to pay attention. Because the nature of TikTok, of course, is that it's very niche, but we wanted everybody to talk about it. So we went to niche creators, we went to massive creators to make sure that we got that reach and that attention that we so desired. And Dave was an incredible partner and reaching out to his friends or brainstorming with us, what types of creators do we want to bring in here? The actor decision, there's the skit format on TikTok is super popular. And so we knew that we wanted to play with that format. And it also offered us an opportunity to make sure the brand was front and center, make sure the RTBs were front and center. And I think that final product, it came together really beautifully because we have these creators to capture attention and, get different types of audiences engaged in this, hook people in, and then, sort of followed up by, I think, really funny skits that highlight the brand and make sure that everybody knows that this is coming from Hilton and Hilton has amazing breakfast and confirmed connecting rooms and an honors system that, the point system and all of that. So
yeah. I mean, speaking of breakfast, I didn't know before watching this 10-minute campaign that Eggs Benedict was created at a Hilton hotel. And there were so many different niches of content there. You mentioned it. The sketch comedy was one. Education, obviously. There were actors in there. It was almost like watching like 5 or 6 TikToks in one. And it kept my attention. Like, was that the insight to say, like, we want this to feel uniquely different at every point of the campaign to keep people engaged?
Yeah. So our goal was to keep people engaged through to the very end and get people watching it. I think we've had like 6 million minutes watched or something. So I think we succeeded in that. But that was the goal. Keep people hooked in and engaged so that they are compelled to watch a 10-minute piece of content, which is a tall order, particularly on a platform where you're used to swiping constantly.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of time watched, and it's an amazing feat. Congratulations again. Outside of the results of the campaign, it obviously really resonated with the audience and it influenced the entire advertising industry. But how has it impacted TBWA's creative and strategic approach moving forward for future TikTok campaigns?
Yeah, so I think TikTok can be many things. And like, I think of it as, we have sort of always on brand building, scrappier content perhaps. And then we have the opportunity to do big sort of breakthrough, never been done before things. I think this campaign has officially inspired our agency to really consider TikTok as a major player and not just something that the intern does, which we all know is not true. Interns are not creating content and developing social strategy, but that's the terrible reputation that I think social sometimes has, particularly in the walls of creative agencies. So I think TikTok is always considered. People want to beat it, right? Which is amazing. And I think this has helped sort of our strategy mission of really making sure that people understand that culture is no longer a monolith. Like, there aren't these big sort of media stages that are necessarily going to, have everybody talking. There are exceptions, of course, Super Bowl being a big one. We need to be thinking about doing smaller things with different types of creators and different types of communities on behalf of our brands to make sure that they resonate with a modern consumer.
Yeah. How's business been for TBWA? I have to assume that all the earned media, all the accolades from this campaign has resulted in more brands looking at TBWA wanting their version of it or wanting more TikTok work. Have you been experiencing that since the launch of this campaign?
Yeah, I think that social and TikTok and, content are more front and center than they have been. We see our clients asking for it, which is amazing. And this case study and success on TikTok has been a boon to the agency, not only in New York, but globally. So we're really proud of it.
Another thing that I noticed about this campaign is that the craft is so noticeable. I look at it and it's so beautiful, and it's different to what I normally see on my For You page, right? I usually see a lot of smartphone captured content. I want to understand just the insight behind going with that style of production, but on a platform that sort of has a different look and feel. Yeah.
So I think craft, and shout out to production and creative. This is not my arena. I cannot take credit for it, but craft is something that TBWA does really well. And so when we were thinking about bringing this long form story to life on a platform that is, a little more scrappy and mostly self-capture, the team really wanted to make something that was to our high production standards. And I think it came together really beautifully. It's like amazing to have sort of this crisp story like within your mobile viewing experience. especially when we have talent like Paris Hilton anchoring the whole thing. When we're working with Paris, we want to make sure that it looks beautiful. And it does because it's Paris, but we want to make sure that it's like to that high production standard.
It was beautiful. A lot of people stuck around. A lot of people watched it, obviously. Can you talk to me about what the business goal was and how you all were able to meet those goals with this campaign?
Yeah, so we really saw this as a way to build connections with a younger consumer set that perhaps hadn't considered Hilton in quite a while. They're aware of the brand, but they don't know what makes it special. So as we were building this idea, our KPI was, of course, watches of the video, which we achieved our goals there, but we also wanted to get people to sign up for Hilton Honors and, acquire them as new customers. The beginning of the TikTok starts with Paris telling people to stick around for an opportunity to win Hilton Honors points, which can be used for amazing things.
Yeah.
And we acquired an entirely new set of people who are interested in Hilton, which felt really good.
All right. So my last question for you today, Lesley, is bringing it full circle. So you mentioned that TBWA, this idea was at the end of the deck that you shared with Hilton Hotels. What advice would you give to creative agencies who want to feel more comfortable positioning the opportunity of TikTok and bringing that idea to main stage? What advice would you give to them to prepare for that?
Yeah, so I think there are a few things to keep in mind here. Like in traditional agencies in particular, we tend to rest all of our laurels on the big sort of broadcast storytelling, right? So thinking about TikTok, though, it is kind of a broadcast channel. So I think that's an opportunity to sort of reposition the opportunity for creatives. I think that the other thing about social ideas ending up in the back of the deck is, when we're looking at 2025 projections, there are going to be more social users engaged on, different channels than there are going to be TV viewers. So that's another thing to consider. And then finally, just making sure you have a strong insight at the very center of your idea that you can keep coming back to. Ours was people move really fast in TikTok, but what if we could compel them to stay in a really, inspiring way that's true to the way that the platform operates? And that was our North Star throughout everything.
Well, thank you, Lesley, for sharing your story with us.
Thanks for having me. It was super fun.
It was a pleasure. And if you work at a creative agency and are looking for support on your next TikTok brief, scan the QR code on the screen or tap the link in our description to connect with the Creative Agency Partnerships team. And don't miss out on upcoming episodes of Made for TikTok Talking Creative. Hit that subscribe button. I'm Jordan. Thank you for tuning in.